They fear it because no matter what you do, they feel, they're in a psychological state of terror. They feel helpless. Even if you throw rocks, they're helpless. And if you use the media against them, they feel helpless. They're just simply in a state of humiliation, not because they're humiliated in the world only, but because they're feeling shame and humiliation, what? Within themselves. And they're acting that out, psychologically speaking. And so what I'm saying is that, okay, so you have the Christians on top of the Jewish world. And then today you still have the Christians, on top of the Jewish world, okay? Basically America is supporting Israel, and this is not necessarily Christian, but it's some big brother and Israel, okay? And this establishment of the State of Israel and having this brother, they go hand in hand. But whenever Israel took an engagement of war upon itself, by itself, without the consultation of others, it always lost. This is just, you could see this in the 1980s, 2006, versus like 1967, and then I think it was 1973. Okay? This war also, Israel should be very careful of its assumptions of we're going to go there and we're going to go and we have a very minimalistic operation to do only to sabotage the infrastructure of Hamas, and then we're going to come out and so on and so forth. They're going with the same type of motivation and the same type of fervor that the Americans went into Iraq with, thinking that it would be an easy come and go solution. What they don't realize is that this may become a perpetual state of war for them. A perpetual state of war. And then what happens to the world where America is stuck in Afghanistan and Iraq and Israel is stuck in Gaza, okay? And both of these superpowers are like, their energies are being sucked out. What happens to the world then? I'm not talking about today or tomorrow. I'm saying 1 year or perceptions 2-3 years from now. So I fear, based upon what I'm understanding, that this war is not going to end very easily for the Jewish people. It's going to become a very perpetual war. And they're making a very, very stupid mistake by doing this war. But anyway, they were doing much better with what they were doing. If you want to oppress people, keep them in a concentration camp, it's much better than taking in the army. But I think they're going to go in, and I don't think they're coming out anytime soon. I know this is the same feelings that we had when there was war with Taliban. We felt that America will go in and get stuck. In the beginning, it seemed like there was a clear victory, but then they did get stuck. So, and then, in the middle, we were like, well, maybe we were wrong. But they did get stuck in Afghanistan, and now they're going to move the entire army from Iraq to, the northwest frontier of Pakistan and Afghanistan, that whole area, because they're really losing over there, even compared to Iraq. So, and I'm not saying all of this is good news. I'm just saying that this is just the reality of the situation at hand. And I think Israel is going to go in, and because it did not consult Big Brother, إِلَّا بِحَبْلٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ أَوْ حَبْلٍ مِّنَ النَّاسِ, he didn't consult Big Brother, didn't take the help of Big Brother, didn't think, George Bush is worth it. Because they took this step upon themselves, I think they're headed for a huge problem. So they're always going to be humiliated, right? Except in 2 conditions. Except under the Islamic State, which is the Sharia law, because then they have rights, which the Muslims will honor. Or they have a contract or an understanding or a relationship with someone who will protect them. What's happening is, if you remember the first Gulf War, Israel also wanted to get involved in the first Iraq war, and America said, don't worry, we'll supply you with the anti-rocket Scud missile thing. Do you remember that? Even to the point of, America babied Israel to the point of, you don't even have to put your own anti-missile launchers. We will provide you with the anti-missile launchers, right, to protect you from Saddam Hussein. But as time is going by, Israel is becoming more and more arrogant and more proud, to the point that it feels now it doesn't need Big Brother. And that will come at its detriment. Because as long as Israel is consulting with Big Brother and getting the yes, you have my okay, you have my blessings, go and do this, as long as America is supporting Israel in terms of making those decisions, then the Quran is saying, إِلَّا بِحَبْلٍ مِّنَ النَّاسِ. Then there are people protecting it, okay? But when Israel takes, as a nation, a step upon itself without consulting in America, like it did in 2006, okay? And so now what you're seeing is Israel is beginning to make steps, what? On its own feet. And that's just against divine rules for it to stand on its own feet. And so what I'm saying is that I could be wrong in my understanding, but what I understand of this ayah is that this is not going to be a pretty war for the Jewish people. This is going to be an urban warfare where the people of Palestine are going to give them a very, very hard time. Yeah. And don't think that Hamas is weaker than Hezbollah. Because ultimately, they don't have those they have the same weapons. The same weapons. So everything from their establishment to whatever foreign affairs policy they've taken, especially when it's against Muslims, and you don't consult divine law, you don't consult a Big Brother, you got divine law hanging over your head against you. And I think the arrogance of Israel will probably get to them now. But I'm basically saying that this is something that is not necessarily bad, what is happening. It may work out. And especially you got to understand, 3 years from now, if Israel is stuck in Gaza, or in a perpetual war with Hezbollah and Hamas, and America is stuck in these countries, you're talking about a world that is going to be changing, and the perceptions of who's powerful and who's not powerful, and the perceptions of what we can do as Muslims, and coming out of the colonial mentality will really kick in, even in the Muslim world.